Well, hey there, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another Self Publishing Insiders with Draft to Digital. And this time we've got another returning guest. We're kind of doing a thing right now where we've got some guests who've been on the show multiple times in the past, but we just can't stay away, especially from this guest in particular, an FOB, a friend of business, a great guy to hang out with in Vegas and other places. We're talking to Ricardo Fayette, co-founder of Reedsy. Hey, Ricardo, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for having me again.
You guys have, I've actually lost count of how many times you've been on the show, but it's always fun. It's always, everyone always responds very well. So,
That's good.
so, I am actually excited to talk about this because there's some things happening on the Reedsy front, and I want us to get into those. But first, I mean, how you been doing? How's everything going in terms of Reedsy and your work there?
Very good. Very good. I think January, like start of the year, is always a great period for us. Probably for you guys as well. A lot of people publish a lot of books. A lot of New Year resolutions of like people, they get
Yeah.
more manuscripts out of the drawer and they send them to editors on Reedsy, or they say, "Oh, I'm going to change my cover." So we always get a surge of an activity in January.
Yeah.
This was no different. So it's always fun to see. Like December, things slow down a lot, and so even after 8 years, you still worry like, is it going to pick up again in January as it always does?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it did. So it's nice.
Yeah. So, for those who may not have tuned into earlier episodes or may not be aware, can you give us kind of a rundown of what Reedsy is and what you guys do for the author community?
Sure. The main thing we're known for, I think, is our marketplace where you can come in and get quotes from professionals whom we've vetted for all kinds of different services. So we started with the editing and design, so all kinds of editing from developmental editing down to proofreading, cover design, typesetting, illustration, and now we also have like marketing in there. So services are for authors who are a little bit further along. So in terms of marketing, we've got people who can help with email marketing, advertising, Facebook, Amazon, BookBub. People can help with strategy. People who can help with blurb writing. And then we've got literary translators, author website designers, ghostwriters. So pretty much all kinds of people you would ever need to hire throughout your writing career. And I think, yeah, that's what we specialize in and we're most known for. Then we've got a few other things like a free writing tool, which also exports. But yeah, fewer people know about that. It's a little bit like Draft to Digital. You guys are known for your distribution,
Yeah.
and yet you have amazing like formatting templates that not everyone knows about. But yeah,
Yeah.
same thing here.
I appreciate the plug for our stuff, but you guys, one of the things I appreciate about Reedsy, by the way, is it's a one stop shop kind of thing where I can answer the questions when people come to me and say, "How do I find a cover designer? How do I find an editor?" I can boil all that down to just reedsy.com. Then I have to spell it, which I don't know. Why'd you guys go with the double E for Reedsy? I'm gonna put that link up, by the way. But
Yes. Um, so mostly it's because the domain was available, the .com domain was available. That's a
yeah.
big reason. The
Okay.
other reason is it's basically it refers to papyrus. Papyrus is made of reeds. It was one of the
Oh,
earliest forms of writing, and so we're like, okay, let's go for
yeah.
that. It sounds cute, so we'll run with it.
You know what they say when you're naming your company and establishing your brand, you should go with something obscure like Reeds. Um,
Exactly.
I'm teasing. So you guys, when were you founded?
2014.
Okay, so yeah, just a couple of years after Draft Digital kind of
Yeah.
started hitting the pixel scene. So we've all been through pretty much all of it together. What was so that's 10, almost 10 years. That's 9 years ago. So over the past 9 years, what do you think has been like the biggest shift in this business from your professional perspective?
Professional perspective, biggest shift. Um, I don't know. I think the biggest shift is the one that started it all. And before our businesses was like the shift to ebooks,
Yeah.
because that's what enabled everything that's come afterwards. Then there have been like smaller shifts that some people thought were going to be huge revolutions, like Kindle Unlimited. Now there's AI, there's audio, which keeps growing. But more than a shift, it adds new formats and new possibilities and new markets. So I think for me, the big shift is the thing that made everything possible in the first place, which was the adoption of ebook devices, of e-reading, and the growth of like digital shopping, basically.
Yeah. It's really been interesting to watch the marketplaces shift. Like the, early days, it was Amazon. I mean, you could eventually get to something like, Barnes and Noble or something. Kobo came along, but now it's, there's actually marketplaces even I have never heard of. Like, we try to be aware of all of them, but there's some popping up all the time.
Yeah, there's new ones.
So what are you seeing? What is the service that authors come to you for the most?
Still to this day, it's editing.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a service that everyone kind of needs and wants, especially at the earlier stages of the journey, and even afterwards, still, want copy editing, proofreading. Then it's cover design, though I think for cover design, we still get a ton of new authors who are certain that they can do their covers themselves, no matter how much we recommend against that. But I get it. In some cases, it can make sense that it's pretty rare. And then we've been really amazed by the growth of marketing. We get a ton of marketing requests. We don't have as many marketers on Reedsy as we would want to, because we're quite selective, and so we get a lot of applications from marketers who, probably wouldn't be that great. But obviously we have a ton of interest. I think most writers, whenever one of their books doesn't sell, will attribute that to marketing before they attribute it to the cover or the book itself. So the first request they're going to want to send on Reedsy is a request for marketing services. Then maybe the marketer tells them, you should reach out to a cover designer here, or actually I read the first few pages and I don't think this is ready to be marketed. They usually say it in a nicer way.
Yeah.
But we get a lot of interest for marketing services, and we've been pleasantly surprised by translation as well. We thought it was going to be very niche, but we get, especially authors, I think, who especially repeat business for translation, like authors who hire the same translator over and over, who then start with the German market and then move on to the other European markets. There's definitely, it feels like the people who are doing it are having success with it. And so they're keeping on with other markets.
It's interesting. I have someone doing German translations for my books now, and it is interesting because there's spikes in sales on that stuff. So just the shift, because the books are available in English there, but they've never been available in German, and it does make a difference. So how common? So people do the translations. So like, how common is that? What percentage would you say of authors you guys get are doing translations?
Very few, like 1% to 5%, something like that. It's not obviously, like, for those of you who are not aware of Reedsy, like we're very selective in terms of the professionals we accept on the marketplace. And so for translators, we have people who worked with all of the big names in their countries, like who've worked with the top publishers in their countries. So they're professional translators, and as such, they charge around 10 cents per word, which is kind of the standard rate for translation. It can be a little bit below or a little bit above, depending on genre and whether they hire someone else to proof it afterwards, things like that. But it's expensive. Like, you're thinking 80,000 word novel, $8,000. You gotta be making a good amount of money on your on the English speaking market before you can think about putting $8,000 to translate one book. And usually people who do that, they go for the first 3 books in the series. And so we're talking even more money. And they recoup that if they already have an audience, usually in the country where they're translating. Like you, for example, you're getting English sales for your English books in Germany. So it makes sense for you to translate to German because those people for fans of yours over there, they can tell their friends who don't necessarily read in English, hey, this author's awesome, and now his books are finally available in German.
That is the challenge, though, because you are effectively starting over, from scratch. So what is, you've mentioned this a couple of times, when it comes to the people that you guys allow to hawk their services through you, what is the process like to vet those people?
It's very manual. So we get them to complete a profile, and that profile is basically their application. And it is what authors see afterwards on the marketplace. And then we look at all the information on the profile, and we have a series of criteria. And yeah, usually criteria is, having worked for X number of years as a professional editor or designer or marketer, etc. Ideally experienced in either traditional publishing or with big indie names, people who have proven to sell well, so that we're certain that these people know their markets. And then we review the profiles and we tweak them, or we ask them to tweak them, etc. So it's a pretty long and manual process, but the result is that you get a really nice selection when you're on Reedsy. It's a searchable selection, so you can search by genre, you can search by service, you can search by keyword, if that genre isn't in the drop-down menu, for example. So yeah, if you want someone who's done like specifically, Victorian romance, you can put in Victorian romance as a keyword, and you're going to get very, very specific list of results.
Yeah, that's handy, because everyone's got something slightly different. So being able to kind of fine tune that's very handy. We have a question, I want to pop it up because this is a good question. I think we can go off on this tangent a little, but Ogilvy Stint on YouTube asks, "Is this like Fiverr?"
Yeah, in the sense that it's a freelancer marketplace. Yeah. The difference, obviously, it's focused on publishing, and that we have a completely different vetting process from Fiverr. Like Fiverr, it's a lot easier to list your services on there. There's a tiny bit of curation, and a lot of it is automated. We accept less than 5% of freelancers who apply to be listed on Reedsy.
Wow.
Who apply to, basically offer their services on the marketplace. So we're very selective, and the process is completely manual. So that's the main difference, I'd say.
That's cool. Yeah. That's impressive. I mean, it's good. I mean, it's good that you're that, I want to say picky, and it's not really picky, but I mean, you are, you have stringent rules and that sort of thing. So, what could someone do to, last question I'm going to ask on this part of it, but I mean, what could someone do to up their odds of getting into, as an editor or a designer or whatever? You got some like best practices?
Yeah, build experience. So we've got a blog post. If you search for like Reedsy freelancer selection criteria, you're going to find our post highlighting the criteria, and just build experience. Reedsy is not a place where you're going to kickstart your career, basically. You got to kickstart your career elsewhere, edit for friends, maybe offer discounts, or find friends who are ready to pay for your services, non-professional services yet. Build your experience, build your portfolio, start taking on bigger names. If you're good at it, authors are going to recommend your services to their peers. So you should get a bunch of business pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And once you've got those years of experience and those books under your belt, then you can apply to join Reedsy. And even if you're not selected at first, you can reapply. I've got people who applied 1 year or 2 years after the first time, and then they were accepted the second or third time around because they built that experience. Yeah,
that's good. So you had mentioned marketing, and you actually have a book. You have a couple of books now. How many books do you have now? At least two. Yeah,
two of them.
Couple is two. Yeah. But the newest one is a marketing focused. I think they're both marketing focused now that I think about it. But the second one is focused on specifically Facebook ads. You want to talk a little bit about the new book?
Yeah. So it's Amazon ads for authors.
So Amazon ads.
Not Facebook ads, but it's more about Amazon ads.
I'm sorry. I got that. That proves I don't
It's
have the
because
book
it's
yet.
blue. It's because it's blue.
It's blue. That's what it is.
That's the problem.
What is Amazon ads are such a tricky thing because there's some guidelines and rules and some things that could prevent you from being able to successfully use Amazon ads. What would you say is the number one thing someone needs to remember if they're going to try to use Amazon ads?
That it's a very analytical platform. Like it's a purely mathematical platform. There's next to no creativity involved in setting up ads on there. So if you run Facebook ads, for example, and you enjoy the part of the process where you create the images, you come up with copy and all of that, you're not going to find that on Amazon. For me, it's all about numbers, and a lot of the book is about numbers. It's like how to figure out if your ads are making profit, how to optimize your bids to make sure that you reach that profit, and then how do you scale. And so, yeah, some people have complained that there's too much math in there, but that's the problem with Amazon ads. Basically, it's very analytical. But yeah.
Is there any limit on who can use Amazon ads?
Yeah, you gotta certain authors might not be able to use Amazon ads for certain products if the cover displays things like nudity. I think the guns thing, if they're pointed at the reader. There are for the steamy stuff, some books are not eligible for Amazon ads, and it's not always super straightforward. It's a little bit hit and miss. Like your ads might get rejected in some cases, and they might go through in some others. So I know that for that kind of stuff, other channels are better. Facebook ads potentially based on the image you select on there. TikTok has grown a lot basically for that audience. But yeah, for everything else, I would say that 90% of authors can use Amazon ads for their books. And even if you can't, I would still try and wait for Amazon to shut it down if they want to shut it down.
You might advise me against this. I don't know. But one of the things that I've enjoyed about Amazon ads is that I can effectively set it and forget it. Like I've set up some ads that work well enough for what I need, and I haven't had to touch them in forever. So it just, unlike Facebook ads, which seem to kind of eventually their effectiveness fades or something goes south. I've had Amazon ads running for quite a while now that still seem to get the numbers. So, and I'm no good at math.
I mean, one of the things I say in the book is that I think authors check their ads way too often for Amazon. It makes no sense to check your ads every day or even every week unless you're getting a ton of clicks. If you're getting 100 clicks a week, then those clicks are going to be distributed across a bunch of different keywords or targets. So if you check that once every 2 weeks or once a month, that's plenty enough. Otherwise, you're making decisions based on, this target got 2 clicks and didn't sell anything. I'm going to pose it. It's way too early to pose it. You've got no statistical significance there. So yeah, I actually look at Amazon ads. For most authors I've worked with, I looked at them every couple of weeks or every month. And you spend a bunch of time on that, but you spend that time when there's enough data in there for you to be able to make decisions.
Yeah. The tricky thing about ads and trying to track the data and everything is that it can get really expensive. And I think that's what worries people. Do you have tips for how to keep the cost down for testing?
Yeah, for me, there are two tactics, right? Which I outline in the book. There's the tactic that was more popular in the beginning when clicks were cheaper, which is spray and pray. You put a bunch of different keywords and targets in there. You bid relatively high, and you see what sticks to the wall. Obviously, by throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall, you pay every time you throw something at the wall. So right now it can be costly. So if you've got money and you want to shorten the learning process, you can do that. If if you want to bootstrap it more, then you need to stay hyper relevant and start with very, very, very relevant targets.
Yeah.
That's going to be not even just also boats, but also boats with a super similar cover or super similar blurb than yours, and going very, very specific. And if it starts working well, then trying to expand progressively, but little by little. So two types of funnels, right? If you have a lot of money, you start with a big funnel, then you narrow down. But obviously, by narrowing down, you spend money. Or the other kind, if you have a budget in mind, right? Then you start very, very narrow, and then you expand slowly.
All right. I think the real answer here is buy Ricardo's book. So here's
one of them.
Actually, is it free?
No, that one isn't. The first one, How to Market a Book, is free.
That one's free.
This one,
okay.
the second one is paid.
Okay, so they can get hooked on the first one for free, and then they're gonna definitely want to pay for the second one. Now, here's a question.
An old tactic.
Yeah, exactly. Lure them in. That's the candy. So here's a question. Maybe this is the idea for your next book, Ricardo. But Gregory asks, I'm curious because I'm not a fan of Amazon ads, and Facebook ads been going south for me for years. I mainly communicate on Twitter. Are there tools for Twitter? Do you know anything about ads on Twitter?
Every time I've tried it, be it for REITI or for authors, it's been terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't heard anyone who had success advertising their books on Twitter. Now there might be some people, but the targeting capabilities are pretty bad.
Yeah.
On there, and you can get a lot of impressions, but the clicks aren't there. So I would use Twitter if you enjoy Twitter. If you enjoy using Twitter, I would use it organically. And try to get some organic visibility to readers in there, using the right hashtags, interacting with people, etc., creating threads. But I wouldn't try to advertise on there.
Yeah, I have to agree with that because I have had absolutely no luck with getting sales through Twitter, and I've tried all kinds of things. That doesn't mean it can't happen. It just means that I've failed at it.
Same here.
So let's shift a little. We got more questions, and I definitely want to loop back on a couple of them. But when you guys have some stuff coming up, what are you working on at Reedsy?
Yeah, we're working on a few things this year, but the most imminent one is a little addition to our free writing tool, the Reedsy Book Editor. So we don't often talk about it, but I mean, we talk about it from a formatting perspective. We've always said that it can export for free to ebook format, so EPUB, and to print ready PDF. So a little bit like Vellum or Atticus, but it's browser based, so accessible from any device, and it's free.
Nice.
The downside is that you don't have a ton of like templates and formatting options. Like you cannot put flowery things in the corners of the first pages in each chapter, for example. Which is one of the main reasons I think why a lot of authors go for Vellum. But we're working more on like the earliest stages. So we've added goal setting and tracking in there, so you can say, I want to write X amount of words by the end of March. So like 50,000 words, and then the program's going to show you, okay, you need to write X amount of words per day. And you got little graphs to stay accountable, and then you can activate notifications. If you miss your target one day, get an email the next day telling you, hey, you missed your target. But good news, like you only need to write this many words from now on per day to still hit your end of like March target. So it's a little kind of accountability thing. And now we're releasing probably next week. So it's not there yet. But next week we're adding boards in there, which is basically plotting tools. So you'll be able to create in a different section boards for characters, for locations, for magic system, just for notes, and then you'll be able to pin those to a sidebar so that you could, for example, like a whole character pinned in the sidebar with their description, their traits, their arc, all of that. And while you're writing the manuscript, you can refer to that character or to a location or to anything in there. So yeah, I think it's going to be fun for plotting.
Yeah.
And then jumping straight into the writing in the same tool.
Those kind of tools always end up distracting me from the actual writing. Like I'll spend 3 weeks designing the perfect set of characters and settings, and and before I know it, I'm a professional character designer. What you guys need is a marketplace for people to put the characters and settings and plots and stuff up for sale on Reedsy.
Maybe. No, we're thinking of having templates in the future. Yeah, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
That'd be handy. I'm kidding about that. I don't think anybody should be buying characters and things from someone else. That just sounds like opening a can of worms. So that's cool. And that's over the next month or so, you said, like in March?
Yeah, probably next week.
Next week, man. All right. And you told me before this started, this is the first time you've talked about it publicly. So
absolutely,
that's a D2D exclusive.
A D2D exclusive.
We get so few of those. That's cool, man. I'm glad to hear that. And I don't hear much about your writing tool. We need to probably push that more because it's important for people to have options like that. I'm a big fan. You probably know this. You actually, I think you sat in on my bootstrapping for authors talk in Vegas, but I'm a big fan of tools that authors can use to produce professional quality work that with like no to low overhead. So I'll have to update my slide deck for Reedsy now.
Thank you. I hope so. I'll be there next time.
You're gonna have a little checklist. Yeah. Okay. You missed this, and this. So what, in terms of like, speaking of budgets and overhead, what, and I know that things are going to be variable, but what could an author expect in terms of overhead if they're using Reedsy for these sorts of things? Like, yeah, most authors don't have a budget, so
right.
What should they expect coming in?
It depends on the service you're looking for. I think we every year we analyze our data on the marketplace from all the quotes that are sent, and we create these average rates, right, for editing, cover design, etc.
Yeah.
And it varies a lot by service. It varies, obviously, it varies by genre as well.
Yeah.
And so we've got these little calculators and graphs where you can see how much editing, how much developmental editing costs for an 80,000 word romance versus memoir or self-help book, right? I think if we sum all the steps of editing up, like if you hire someone for developmental editing, then you hire someone for copy editing, then you hire someone for proofreading, and you hire someone for cover design, for like a full-length novel, that's probably going to run by the average rates we see on the marketplace in the $4,000 or $5,000.
Okay.
Yeah, which is quite a bit of money. Thankfully, you don't have to hire all those services. And usually our recommendation is that, you hire 2 separate kinds of editors, one for the story element part and one for the mechanical editing part. So someone for developmental editing and then someone who's going to do both copy editing and proofreading. If you've got extra cash and you really want to have 0 typos in your novel, then you might want to hire a separate proofreader, or even several separate proofreaders. I know some authors who do very well and they hire up to 5 different proofreaders, I think, when they release something.
Yeah.
Which sounds excessive, but I mean,
but everyone misses totally something. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone misses something. So if you really want nothing to get through, then you hire a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're really good, and then you need to identify where your strengths lie, right? If maybe you're very good at mechanical editing, at catching typos, then you just pay for developmental editing, which is really, really, I think, indispensable at the earlier stages of your career.
Yeah.
But you save money on the copy editing and the proofreading by doing it yourself, and a few typos are going to be there, but it's life. Readers will forgive that more than they will forgive a huge plot hole or a book with pacing that completely slows down after chapter 3, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to basically decide where you put your money.
Yeah. And that's the rule anyway. I mean, you should be really picky about where you're putting your money and
Yeah.
really efficient about it. Uh, okay, so we have a question from earlier, and I'm really curious to hear your answer on this. Is Reedsy a way to connect with agents on some level?
I don't know which level. uh, no, no.
You don't have
We
like
have
an
a
agent
directory.
listing or anything like that. Okay, a
Yeah, we do. We
directory.
do have a directory of literary agents, where you can create even a short list of literary agents,
Yeah,
and then export it. We're not going to connect you to them. It's just a directory that lists their information, what kind of books and authors they've represented, and which agency they work for, where they're located, etc.
yeah,
So it's a very helpful research tool, especially since it's free. Like for a lot of
yeah,
other tools, you got to pay. That one is free, so I would definitely use it. But it's not magical in the sense that we're not going to connect you with an agent.
right.
What I really recommend, like if you really want an agent, um, what I would consider getting is hiring a professional editor for a query letter review. That's pretty inexpensive
Yes.
service because they're just going to look at your query and your first 5 pages. But that is so important,
Yeah.
that their opinion, yeah, it's worth investing a couple $100
Yeah.
to really nail those elements, because otherwise you might pitch, start off by pitching the 5 agents you really, really want because they seem perfect for you. And
Yeah.
just because there are a few things that are off in your query, they're just going to dismiss it right out of the gate. And you've burned the bridge of 5 agents, your 5 most interesting ones.
Yeah.
So that's why I recommend really, spending time and a bit of money to get those things as perfect as possible.
Yeah.
Which in no way is going to guarantee that you're going to get the agent of your dreams, but it's going to put all the chances on your side.
You could do what so you're familiar with Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. You remember?
Yeah.
Okay. So she, in her book, I am going to call it Big Magic, I think is the title. She actually said something about how she actually got a book deal one time because she kept sending the same query back to that same agent, but like years apart. And the familiarity of it got the agent to pick it up. So
Interesting.
now you and
That's
Alyssa, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, that's one try. No, that's one way to go about it.
Yeah, familiarity. They recognize the idea, and familiarity breeds attraction, they say. So you and Alyssa, our own Alyssa, had the same thought. I wanted to
Yeah.
post her comment. You could hire an editor with experience in editing query letters on Reedsy, which is not a bad way to go. I mean, that's something I think a lot of authors, if you are aiming for some sort of traditional contract, we don't think about that. Usually we don't think that, we would think about hiring an editor for our, the actual book. But we hardly ever think about, maybe I should hire an editor for my copywriting, or maybe I should hire an editor for my query writing or something. So
That's right.
very good point. Here's a nice comment that popped up from Carolyn. Reedsy has so many useful resources. Love your launch book. That's cool.
Thank you.
Cool. Is that something you want to talk about, launch book?
I think that's my how to market a book.
Okay.
Like the one that is free on all retailers, that one that comes in the series before the Amazon Ads book. But I mean, if you're referring to a different resource on Reedsy, let us know, because we do have quite a few.
Yeah, I think the launch process is something that's tricky for authors. Even I sometimes I've changed my workflow for launching a book probably a dozen times over the past 15, 20, almost 20 years now. And it's just, and you do have to update it to accommodate what's new out there in the marketplace too. You guys are kind of closely watching the marketplaces and stuff, right? I mean, you've got a great blog, by the way. We get criticized internally because our blog isn't as good as yours.
Internally? by we? Who do you mean by we?
I'm not gonna drop any names, but a very special birthday boy today has pointed out that we should aim for your blog in terms of quality. So, birthday boy at
Well,
DDD.
that is very nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, birthday boy.
I agree with him too. I mean, we're working on it, but you guys have definitely got your content game down.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a good team, and we've been doing it for quite a long time. I think content marketing has always been super important for us. Also because we're a self-service marketplace, and so a lot of times we get authors on there who land and they have no idea what developmental editing is, what typesetting is, what copy editing is, and all those things. So we figured out we better do a lot of education and produce a lot of content to basically teach authors what they should be looking for, what the cost for these services usually is, so that they can actually use our services successfully.
So sorry, I've got a couple of people are complaining about the stream being glitchy. I'm sorry about that. I have no control over that. So I hope the problem gets resolved for you. Things seem fine on our end so far.
Yeah, it looks fine for me.
All right. Ace Adams wanted to comment on ads. Says it's always been for me what to pay per click. What he's saying, I basically saying he's always trying to figure out what to pay per click. Some folks say 20 cents CPC, but I don't think they will serve your ads at that price. What's your experience on that with Amazon?
My experience is that it varies quite a lot by genre and from one author to another. And competitive contemporary fiction genres, it's going to take more than 20 cents usually to get a click. It can go up to $1 or more. That said, what I've usually found is that newer accounts have to pay more because Amazon has no data on that account. So they have no data on whether your ads are going to attract clicks, let alone sales. So what we call the quality score of your ads is non-existent. Whereas you're competing with other authors who've been advertising for a while, and Amazon has data on their ads, and they know that their ads produce a lot of clicks and a lot of sales, so they have a high quality score. And so for Amazon, it's more beneficial to show their ads rather than yours, unless you're bidding higher, right?
Yeah.
So in the beginning, you often have to bid a little bit higher, and then you reduce. The alternative is going for very long tail targets and keywords, so the very super relevant stuff that I was talking earlier, where you can afford to bid a little bit lower because there's fewer competition, but obviously you're not going to get a ton of clicks on those because they're long tail. So yeah, you'll have to bid a little bit higher in the beginning, but then if your ads do well, Amazon's going to help you. And I think that's true for all retailers and sales in general. The more you sell and the better you do on any retail, the more they're going to help you. You got to first prove that your book is doing well in their marketplace for them to want to push it further.
Yeah. All right. So you, Reedsy, and you in particular, Ricardo, like us at DDD, have a pretty unique perspective on this on the indie publishing side of things. What do you think is the next big turning point for self-publishing?
It's looking like it's going to be AI apparently. I'm not big on predicting the future because there's a ton of different things that that can happen. Joanna Penn is much better than that than I ever was. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, right? There's like blockchain technology that's been around for a while. In theory, that could be amazing for books. In practice, right now, it's very far from ready. And we could have said the same thing about AI last year, right? In theory, it can completely change the publishing landscape. In practice, right now, it seemed like we're years away from it. And right now, it seems like we're there. So it's hard to say, but it does seem like it's the new technology that's going to have the most immediate significant impact, and it remains to be seen like where and how much. And I think what's weird with AI, it's going to depend a lot on legislation, I feel, and we have no idea what that legislation is going to be and when it's going to happen. Usually it takes years for laws to change. And for AI, we need laws to change very quickly.
Yeah, it's a very steep change curve. Like everything happens instantly. Like, in the past when we've had technological advances that either benefited or harmed authors in some way, you had months to years sometimes to figure it out. And this felt like a flip of a switch. Like suddenly we have to deal with this now. Along with like aliens and spy balloons and all kinds of other things that are happening in the world. Like suddenly AI is a thing that we now have to, not just contend with, but just deal with. Like we have no idea where it's going. It's really interesting to watch everything evolve.
It is.
Yeah.
No, I think it's going to create, like any new thing, it's going to create opportunities, and I see it in a positive light. I do think that we're going to need legislation, because otherwise, what's stopping someone from, feeding an AI the whole catalog from a successful author and just like entering their niche tomorrow with 50 different books?
But do you see that though as an actual, like, everyone's got a different answer for this. I have my own take on this, but is that any different other than the volume of books that they could probably produce? Is it really a problem that the AI is training on someone else's work? Do you see that as some violation?
And
you don't have to answer that if it puts you on the spot. By the way,
I see it as a violation if they train it on one person's body of work, rather than a group of anonymized bodies. Right.
Yeah.
But obviously that creates gray lines, like what constitutes a group, like how many people do we need to have a group in there? Like, for example, especially around, I think it's easier to understand images, right? If I say, create a drawing in the same style as this famous illustrator, and then that drawing is technically mine if I've paid for like the Midjourney license and I can use it commercially, that feels weird to me. And that it feels to me like this shouldn't be allowed, because you're basically taking years of work, feeding it to an AI, and then basically appropriating that work and that style.
Yeah.
Whereas concepts that are more general, I want a realistic, or I want a painting that's like an impressionist style.
Yeah.
That doesn't belong to anyone, right?
I mean, this is, and we're going to move away from this as soon as I ask this question, I promise, because it is an interesting question. But like, what is functionally the difference between me asking an AI to give me, art in the style of Jim Lee, famous comic book artist, and me going on Fiverr.com and asking an artist there to give me art in the style of Jim Lee? Is it really that different? This is not supposed to be our topic, by the way. So we're off on a tangent.
I think the second, if you ask someone to copy it, there can be a question as to the legality. It depends, like, how close what they create is.
Right. And let me make it clear. I'm not asking for, I want this exact image by Jim Lee. I just want art in that style, the same as I might want art in the style of Picasso or art in the style of Leonardo da Vinci. But anyway, we're not gonna be able to solve this or answer these questions, because there's a lot, there's so much to consider. But suffice to say, neither of our companies are working on anything AI at the moment that I'm aware of.
No, don't hate us.
But I still see it as a good tool. I use it for some editing. I think it's a very good editing tool. It does. It's pointed out some things that I never would have spotted on my own. All right. Well, we're sorry for getting us off on that in those weeds. For some reason, AI becomes the topic all the time now. I guess it's understandable.
Yeah.
But you guys are continuing. I'm always impressed by everything you're doing, always. And I'm one of your biggest fans. I promote you here at Draft Digital. You know, when people ask us for recommendations for things, you guys are always top of mind. So could not speak highly enough of Reedsy and of you, Ricardo. You and I got to hang out in Vegas this last time for really the first time. We didn't get to bond earlier, but we bonded in Vegas. So it was good to see you there.
Yeah,
so
it was great.
Anything you want to throw in here at the end? We've already talked about what's coming up. Or you can pitch your books or anything else you want.
I think we've told about pretty much everything. Like
that's it. Well, everything Reedsy. All that's left to say is make sure you go to reedsy.com. That's REEDSY.com. Name for Reeds. I learned in this episode of Self-Publishing Insiders.
See, you had to invite me again.
Yes, you'll be back. You'll be back. You're always back. You always come around. Everybody watching this, make sure you go to reedsy.com, visit that, check them out. Definitely there. Stay for the resources. It's a great tool. Make sure that you are signing up for an account at Reedsy, but also at draftedigital.com. We can help you out. And make sure you bookmark d2dlive.com where you can get updates on upcoming episodes like this one. That's going to do it for this episode of Self-Publishing Insiders. Thank you again, Ricardo. And to everyone else, thank you. And we'll see you all next time. Take care.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone.